She moved into her husband's house full of hope. But his mother wanted to crush her before she even had a chance. Every word she said, every meal she cooked, every smile she gave, nothing was enough. Humiliated in front of everyone, she could have broken down, but she didn't. She chose silence, and in that silence, she began to grow stronger. This is the story of how a daughter-in-law's quiet strength became unstoppable, and how revenge didn't come with anger, it came with patience, power, and grace. Emily arrived at her new home with a heart full of hope and a smile that could melt anyone's anger except Margaret's. Her mother-in-law stood at the doorway, her eyes scanning Emily from head to toe. Margaret was elegant, disciplined, and fiercely protective of her son Daniel. In her mind, no woman could ever be good enough for him. The house was warm, filled with the smell of freshly baked bread, but Emily could feel the chill in the air. From the very first morning, she noticed how Margaret's tone carried hidden judgment behind every polite word. "Emily, dear," Margaret said as they sat for breakfast, "I hope you know how to keep things in order. My son doesn't like chaos." Emily smiled politely. "Of course, Mom. I'll do my best." Margaret's lips curled into a faint smirk. "We'll see. Daniel tried to keep the peace, but he was often away at work, leaving Emily and Margaret under the same roof for long hours. The silence between them grew heavy. If Emily cleaned, Margaret found dust. If Emily cooked, Margaret said it lacked flavor. At first, Emily tried harder. She woke up early, kept the house spotless, cooked perfectly, and still received nothing but cold looks. Every failure, no matter how small, became a lecture. One afternoon, Emily overheard Margaret on the phone with a friend. "She's polite, yes, but she's not like us. My son deserves better." Those words stung deeply, but Emily didn't react. That night, she sat by her bedroom window, staring at the stars. Her eyes filled with tears, but her heart whispered, "I'll prove myself not with anger, but with strength." That night marked the beginning of Emily's quiet transformation. The following month brought family gatherings, celebrations, and endless tests for Emily. Margaret made sure every moment reminded her who truly ruled the house. During Daniel's birthday dinner, with relatives gathered around the table, Margaret smiled sweetly and said, "Emily tried to make Daniel's favorite dish today, but it didn't taste quite right. Maybe next year she'll get it right." Yetzid. Everyone laughed politely. Emily's cheeks flushed red. Daniel reached for her hand under the table, but she gently pulled away, embarrassed. Later that night, she cleaned the dishes alone. Margaret walked in, her tone calm but cutting. "You shouldn't take it personally, dear. I just like to keep things honest. Family should know who really makes the best food here." Emily said nothing. She finished washing the dishes, wiped her hands, and quietly went to bed. But she couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed every insult, every look, every false smile. For a moment, she wanted to scream, to shout back, to defend herself. But instead, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Silence can be power," she thought. "I just need to use it the right way." The next morning, Emily decided to focus on her own growth. She found an online course in graphic design and began working from home in her free hours. Her passion grew quietly, hidden behind her soft smiles and calm tone. While Margaret continued her daily criticism, Emily's silence became her armor. Weeks passed. Emily's online work began to take off. She earned her first paycheck and used it to buy a small gift for Margaret, a silk shawl in her favorite color. When she handed it to her, Margaret looked surprised. "What's this for?" Emily smiled. "For you, Mom. You've done so much for us." Margaret hesitated, then took it without emotion. "Thank you," she said flatly. But deep down, she felt something unfamiliar guilt. Emily's confidence grew. She started helping neighbors, volunteering at local events, and quietly becoming admired by everyone around her. People spoke highly of her kindness and patience. Margaret heard their words and felt her pride sting. One evening, when Daniel mentioned how proud he was of Emily's growing career, Margaret snapped, "Don't forget who raised you to be successful in the first place." Daniel looked confused, but Emily simply smiled and said, "Mom's right. We all learn from her strength." That answer disarmed Margaret completely. For the first time, she had nothing to say. Daniel's promotion became the reason for a grand family party. The house was beautifully decorated thanks to Emily. Guests admired her creativity and warmth. Margaret watched silently as everyone praised her daughter-in-law. Jealousy and pride battled inside her heart until finally she couldn't hold it anymore. As the laughter echoed, she stood and said loudly, "Everyone should know the truth. Emily only does these things to look perfect. She wants people to believe she's the best wife, but it's all a show." The room fell silent. Daniel's smile faded. Guests looked at one another in shock. Emily stood still for a moment, then walked to the center of the room. Her voice was calm, but her words carried weight. "Mom," she said softly, "I've never wanted to be better than anyone. I only wanted to belong here. Respect is something I give freely, and I hope one day I'll earn it back." No one spoke. Margaret's face turned pale. She quietly excused herself and left the room. That night, she couldn't sleep. For the first time, she began to wonder if she had gone too far. A few weeks later, Margaret fell ill. The once strong woman now lay weak in bed, her pride replaced by silence. Daniel was away on a work trip, leaving Emily to care for her mother-in-law. Emily brought her soup, medicine, and a gentle smile. She changed the sheets, adjusted her pillows, and stayed awake through the night, making sure Margaret was comfortable. At first, Margaret resisted. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. Emily replied softly, "I want to. Family takes care of each other." Tears welled up in Margaret's eyes. "After all I've done to you, why are you being kind?" Emily smiled, because kindness heals what anger can't. That night, Margaret cried quietly. Her pride finally broke. Months later, the house was filled with peace. Margaret recovered fully and was no longer the same woman. She laughed more, helped Emily in the kitchen, and often told Daniel, "Your wife is the best blessing this family ever got." Emily's business continued to grow, and her relationship with Margaret turned from rivalry into friendship. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Margaret said softly, "You won, Emily, not with anger, but with grace." Emily smiled. "It was never about winning, Mom. It was about love." And as the orange light filled the sky, the house that was once divided by pride was finally united by forgiveness and strength. Emily's silence had never been weakness. It was the sound of power growing quietly until it finally changed everything. Emily's silence turned into strength, and her patience became the ultimate form of revenge. In a world where cruelty often goes unchecked, sometimes the quietest victories are the most powerful. If you loved this story and want to see more tales of courage, cunning, and justice, make sure to subscribe to Revenge Proves. Remember, revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, calculated, and unforgettable.